Have you ever wondered why a one-way U-Haul truck rental from Los Angeles to Phoenix costs nearly 3 times as much as renting that same truck to go from Phoenix back to Los Angeles? It sounds like a strange economic riddle, doesn't it? But that price difference isn't an accident, and it isn't a glitch. It is arguably the most reliable indicator of a massive shift happening in America right now. It is the sound of millions of people voting with their feet, packing up their entire lives, and fleeing specific parts of the country. We are witnessing a historic migration pattern where formerly powerhouse states are bleeding population at an alarming rate. If you are an aspiring immigrant looking to move to the U.S. or a real estate investor looking for your next deal, you need to know which states are sinking ships before you buy your ticket or sign a deed. Imagine for a second that you have spent your whole life dreaming of living in a specific place. Maybe you saw it in the movies. Maybe you heard stories about the endless opportunities there. Now imagine finally getting there, unpacking your bags, and realizing within 6 months that you have made a terrible financial mistake. This is the reality facing thousands of people right now. We are seeing a great reshuffling, where the states that used to define the American dream are becoming the states that people are desperate to escape. You look around and see businesses boarded up. You see your neighbors putting up for sale signs one after another. You start to feel the panic rising. Did I just buy into a dying market? Welcome back to State of Mind. If you are new here, we explore the real America, the good, the bad, and the profitable, to help you find your place in the world. Whether you are looking to move here, invest here, or just understand how this massive real estate market actually works, we don't sugarcoat things here. We look at the numbers, the stories, and the reality on the ground so you can make decisions with your eyes wide open. Today, we are looking at the Exit 7, the states that lost the most residents recently, and more importantly, why they are leaving. The methodology we are using today isn't just based on hunches. We are looking at census data, moving van line studies, and the undeniable trends in real estate inventory. When you see inventory spiking in one state while it plummets in another, that is the market screaming at you to pay attention. We are going to count down these 7 states, and I promise you, the reasons for leaving vary wildly from state to state. Sometimes it is the weather, sometimes it is the taxes, and sometimes it is simply fear. But knowing these 7 states could save you hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost equity and years of frustration. Let's dive right into the deep end with the state that has long been the symbol of the American dream. Number 1 on our list is California. For decades, California was the ultimate destination. It was the land of Hollywood, Silicon Valley, endless sunshine and gold rushes. If you were sitting in a coffee shop in Mexico City or Mumbai or London dreaming of America, you were probably dreaming of California. But the truth is, the Golden State is losing its shine, and it is losing it fast. For the first time in its history as a state, California actually lost a congressional seat recently because its population growth stalled compared to the rest of the country. Here is the reality that hits you the moment you land at LAX or SFO. It is expensive. And I don't mean skip your morning latte expensive. I mean rethink your entire life plan expensive. The median home price in California has hovered around $800,000. In the Bay Area, you can find shacks, literal fixer-uppers with peeling paint and bad plumbing, selling for over $1 million. For a regular family or a new immigrant arriving with a nest egg they spent years saving, that is simply insurmountable. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a guy named Mateo. Mateo is a software engineer, highly skilled, moving from Brazil to San Francisco. He lands a job paying $150,000 a year. That sounds like a fortune, right? In many parts of the world, and even in many parts of America, that is wealthy. But in California, after federal taxes, the massive state income tax, paying $4,000 a month for a one-bedroom apartment, paying $5 for a gallon of gas, and dealing with utility bills that seem to double every year, Mateo is living paycheck to paycheck. He isn't building wealth. He's just treading water in a very pretty pool. This is the California paradox. You make more money, but you keep less of it. The
The state has some of the highest income tax rates in the country, reaching up to 13% for high earners. If you sell a property, you get hit. If you buy gas, you get hit. It feels like every time you turn around, the state has its hand in your pocket. And people are tired of it. They're looking at their bank accounts and realizing that the sunshine tax, the premium you pay to enjoy the weather, is just too high.
But it isn't just the money. There is a quality of life issue that is driving people away. We have to talk about the homelessness crisis and the feeling of safety. In major cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco, the visible poverty is shocking to many newcomers. You have tent cities sprawling under overpasses and in public parks. For a family looking to put down roots, seeing this level of societal breakdown creates a sense of unease. You begin to ask yourself, if I am paying some of the highest taxes in the nation, why does the street outside my apartment look like this? Major companies are doing the math and coming to the same conclusion. You have likely heard about Tesla, Oracle, and Hewlett-Packard moving their headquarters out of the state, but it isn't just the giants. It is the small business owners, the mom-and-pop shops, and the independent contractors who are fleeing. The regulatory environment in California is notoriously difficult. Obtaining permits can take years. Labor laws are complex and expensive for employers. If you are an entrepreneur who wants to start a business, California puts a lot of hurdles in your way compared to business-friendly states like Texas or Florida. There is another factor that is pushing people out, specifically in the last 2 years, the insurance crisis. This is something most people don't think about until they try to buy a house. Because of the risk of wildfires, major insurance carriers like State Farm and Allstate have paused or restricted writing new homeowner policies in California. This means if you buy a house, you might struggle to find insurance, or you might be forced onto the FAIR plan, which is the state's insurer of last resort and is incredibly expensive. Imagine stretching your budget to buy that dream home only to find out your insurance bill is going to be $500 a month. For many, that is the straw that breaks the camel's back.
So who is leaving? The data shows it is a mix. It is the wealthy who are tired of the taxes, but increasingly it is the middle class and the working class. It is the teachers, the police officers, and the service workers who simply cannot afford to live near where they work. They are moving to Arizona, Nevada, and Idaho, seeking a place where a middle-class salary still buys a middle-class life. They are trading the beach for a backyard and the traffic for time with their families. However, a common mistake people make is thinking California is dead. It is not. It is still a massive economy, but if you're an investor, you have to realize that the appreciation-only strategy is risky now. You can't just buy a house and assume it will go up 10% next year. You have to look for cash flow. And in California, finding positive cash flow with these prices and interest rates is like finding a needle in a haystack. The easy money era in California real estate is over. California is just one piece of the puzzle. It represents the West Coast exodus. But on the other side of the country, there is another giant that is bleeding residents for entirely different reasons. This state has the culture, the history, and the energy, but it also has a tax burden and a weather problem that is driving people south in record numbers. I am talking about New York. But before you assume this is just about New York City, you need to understand that the exodus is happening across the entire state. Upstate New York, the suburbs, and the city are all seeing a shift. The reasons here are a unique cocktail of high costs and a changing workplace culture that has made the New York premium less attractive.
We are going to dive deep into New York and another Midwestern state that is facing a financial death spiral that every investor needs to be aware of. Stick around, because if you own property in this next state, you might be sitting on a ticking tax time bomb. We just finished talking about the West Coast exodus and the pricing crisis in California. But now we have to turn our eyes to the East Coast, to the state that has arguably the most famous city on the planet. Coming in at number 2 on our list of states people are fleeing is New York. For generations, New York was the center of the universe. If you wanted to make it in finance, fashion, media, or art, you didn't just want to move to New York, you had to. It was the price of admission for a successful career. But something fundamental shifted in 2020, and the state hasn't recovered since. That shift was the realization that you can do the job without paying the toll. The New York premium used to be worth it. You paid exorbitant rent and high taxes, but you got access to the best networks, the best food, and the best culture. But when offices closed and remote work became the norm, that value proposition collapsed for millions of people. Suddenly, you had young professionals asking a very dangerous question for the state's economy. Why am I paying $4,000 a month for a shoebox apartment in Manhattan when I can do this same job from a beach house in the Carolinas or a spacious condo in Florida for half the price? Let's look at the numbers because they are staggering. New York leads the nation in population decline percentages in recent years. And just like California, it is a high-tax state. We are talking about state income taxes that take a huge bite out of your paycheck, combined with city taxes if you live in NYC, and very high property taxes in the suburbs, like Westchester and Long Island. If you were a high earner, you were essentially working for the government until May or June every year. This has triggered a massive wealth flight. When 5 billionaires leave, the budget feels it. When 5,000 millionaires leave, the budget bleeds. Imagine a graphic designer named Sarah. She lives in a walk-up in Brooklyn. She loves the city, but she is 32 now, thinking about a family. She pays nearly $4,000 in rent, plus city tax, plus state tax. She realizes that despite making a six-figure salary, she is saving almost nothing. Then she visits a friend in Tampa. She sees her friend living in a brand new two-bedroom apartment with a pool, a gym, and a balcony, paying $2,000 a month. And here's the kicker. In Florida, her friend pays zero state income tax. Sarah does the math on a napkin and realizes that just by moving, she would effectively give herself a 20% raise. That is the moment New York loses another resident. But for the real estate investor, there is a hidden danger in New York that is even scarier than taxes: the regulatory environment. New York has some of the most aggressive tenant protection laws in the country. Now, protecting tenants is noble, but for a small landlord, it can be a nightmare. Stories of squatters taking over homes or tenants who stop paying rent and cannot be evicted for 12 to 18 months are common. During that time, you, the owner, are still paying the mortgage, the insurance, and the taxes. If you are a beginner investor, one bad tenant in New York can bankrupt you. You have to ask yourself, is the potential appreciation worth the risk of carrying a non-paying asset for a year? A common mistake investors make here is falling for the cap rate trap in upstate New York. You might see a multifamily house in Buffalo or Rochester listed for $100,000. It looks like an incredible deal compared to national averages, but you have to look at the expenses. The property taxes in these areas are some of the highest in the nation relative to home value. You could be paying $5,000 or $6,000 a year in taxes on a house worth barely six figures. That expense ratio eats your cash flow alive. You are buying a cheap asset with an expensive liability attached to it, and that is a recipe for a stagnant portfolio. This brings us to state number 3, a place that serves as a stark warning for what happens when a state spends money it doesn't have for too long. We are heading to the Midwest, to Illinois. If California is losing people because of cost, and New York is losing them because of lifestyle changes, Illinois is losing people because of a financial death spiral. This is a state that has been losing population for a decade straight. It isn't a new trend, it is a chronic condition. The elephant in the room in Illinois is the pension crisis. To put it simply, for years, politicians in Illinois promised generous pensions to state workers but didn't put enough money aside to pay for them. Now, the bill is due. The state has massive unfunded liabilities. We are talking about hundreds of billions of dollars. Why does this matter to you as a resident or investor? Because the only way the state can pay those debts is by raising taxes. When you buy a house in Illinois, you aren't just buying the house, you are buying a share of that state debt.
This manifests most painfully in property taxes. Illinois has the second highest property taxes in the nation, right behind New Jersey. Imagine this scenario. You find a beautiful brick 3-bedroom house in a nice suburb of Chicago listed for $300,000.
It looks like a steal compared to prices in LA or Miami. Get excited. But then you scroll down to the tax history and your jaw drops. The annual property tax bill is $10,000. That is almost $1,000 a month just in taxes, effectively a second mortgage that never gets paid off. Over 30 years, you might pay more in taxes than you paid for the house itself. This creates a valuation trap for homeowners. As taxes go up, home values get suppressed because buyers factor in that monthly tax cost. So you have residents who want to leave because the taxes are too high, but they can't sell their homes for what they need because the buyers are scared off by the taxes. It is a vicious cycle, and it hits retirees the hardest. Imagine a couple, Mike and Jenny, who have paid off their mortgage. They're on a fixed income. Suddenly, their tax bill jumps, and they realize they can no longer afford to live in the house they own free and clear. They are forced to sell and move to Indiana or Wisconsin just to survive. And we have to talk about the business climate. It is not just families leaving, it's major corporations. You have likely heard about Citadel, Boeing, and Caterpillar moving their headquarters out of Illinois recently. These are titans of industry. When they leave, they take high-paying executive jobs, philanthropic spending, and prestige with them. It signals to the rest of the market that the state is not open for business. This corporate exodus hollows out the tax base even further, which ironically forces the state to squeeze the remaining residents even harder.
The real tragedy in Illinois is that it has so much potential. Chicago is a world-class city with incredible architecture, a stunning lakefront, and amazing food. But the fiscal mismanagement is a repellent. If you are an immigrant looking to move to the U.S., you might be tempted by the lower home prices in Illinois. But you need to be very careful. Do the math on the monthly payment, including taxes, not just the purchase price. A $2,000 mortgage payment becomes a $3,000 payment very quickly once the tax assessor gets involved. There's a concept in real estate called voting with your feet. In Illinois, we are seeing this happen in real time. People are crossing the border into Indiana, where they can often work the same jobs in the region but keep significantly more of their income. It is a harsh reality check. If you are an investor, you can make money in Illinois, specifically in cash flow neighborhoods, but you are betting against the state's financial health. You are swimming upstream against the current of debt. However, it is not all doom and gloom. There are pockets of Illinois, specifically further away from Cook County, where Chicago is, where the taxes are more manageable and the lifestyle is quieter. But for the state as a whole, the trend is negative. They are losing political power too. Just like California, Illinois lost a congressional seat, meaning they have less say in Washington, D.C. than they used to. This loss of influence can further hurt the state's ability to get federal funding, compounding the problem.
So we have California with its cost of living crisis, New York with its lifestyle and tax exodus, and Illinois with its death spiral. But what about the states that are smaller, denser, and perhaps even more frustrating for the average homeowner? Next, we're going to look at two states in the Northeast that are surprising contenders for the most people leaving title. One of them is the neighbor to New York that gets all the overflow but none of the glory, and the other is a state known for its prestigious universities but is becoming a gated community for the rich. In the next section, we're diving into New Jersey and Massachusetts. You might be surprised to learn that despite their high incomes and good schools, people are packing up and leaving these states faster than you can say property tax appeal. Stick around, because if you think Illinois taxes were bad, wait until you hear about the situation in the Garden State. And if you think California housing is expensive, wait until you see what is happening in Boston. The Exit 7 list continues, and it is about to get very crowded in the Northeast. We've already covered the West Coast pricing crisis, the lifestyle exodus from New York, and the terrifying debt spiral in Illinois. But now we need to look at a state that is often treated as the overflow for New York, yet has developed a massive migration crisis of its own. Coming in at number 4 on our list is New Jersey. If Illinois is the king of bad budgeting, New Jersey is the undisputed heavyweight champion of property taxes. For years, this state has held the title for the highest effective property tax rate in the entire United States. It is a distinction that no state wants, and it is the primary engine driving people to pack up and cross the Delaware River into Pennsylvania or head down I-95 to the Carolinas. Here is the brutal reality of living in the Garden State right now. On paper, New Jersey offers a lot: proximity to New York City and Philadelphia, excellent public schools, and a coastline that locals love. But the price of admission has become unsustainable for the average family. You might find a decent split-level home in a nice suburb for $500,000. Relative to Brooklyn or Manhattan, that sounds like a steal. But then the tax bill arrives. In many New Jersey municipalities, it is not uncommon to see annual property tax bills of $15,000, $18,000, or even $25,000 for a standard middle-class home.
Let's break down what that actually means for your wallet. If your tax bill is $18,000 a year, you are paying $1,500 a month just for the privilege of owning that property. That is $1,500 that doesn't go toward your mortgage principal, it doesn't go toward interest, it doesn't build you a cent of equity. It is essentially a subscription fee to live in your own house. And unlike a mortgage, which eventually gets paid off, this fee only goes up. This creates a specific trap for real estate investors that I call the Jersey calculator blind spot. This is a common mistake I see beginners make all the time. You go to a site like Zillow or Redfin, you find a duplex in New Jersey that looks like a cash cow, and you run the numbers using the default mortgage calculator. The calculator usually defaults the property tax rate to the national average of around 1 or 1.2%. The numbers look amazing. You are seeing positive cash flow. But in New Jersey, the effective rate is often well over 2%, and in some towns it pushes 3%. If you don't manually adjust that number, you are going to walk into a deal that bleeds money from day one. I've seen investors buy properties thinking they would cash flow $500 a month, only to realize after closing that the tax bill wipes out their entire profit margin.
But it isn't just the money, it is the density squeeze. New Jersey is the most densely populated state in America. There are 9 million people packed into a very small area. The result is a relentless grind. Traffic is a daily battle. Going to the grocery store, going to the mall, driving to work, everything involves congestion. For a generation that is increasingly valuing mental health, space, and a slower pace of life, New Jersey feels like a pressure cooker. Imagine a couple named Tony and Lisa. They grew up in New Jersey. They love the bagels, they love the diners, and their parents live 10 minutes away. They don't want to leave. But Tony works in tech and Lisa is a teacher. They are making good money, combined maybe $200,000 a year. But after federal tax, state income tax, tolls to get to work, and that massive property tax bill, they are barely saving anything. They feel like they are running on a hamster wheel. Then they visit friends in North Carolina. They see their friends living in a house that is twice the size of theirs, with a massive yard, paying $2,000 a year in taxes. Tony and Lisa do the math on a napkin and realize that by moving, they could effectively give themselves a $25,000 a year raise. That is the moment the emotional tie to the state snaps. They list the house the next week. And when they do sell, they get hit with one final surprise, the so-called exit tax. Now, to be technically accurate, this is an estimated tax payment withholding, not a penalty. But try explaining that to a seller at the closing table. When you sell a home in New Jersey and you are moving out of state, the state requires a significant withholding of the sale proceeds to ensure they get their capital gains tax. It feels like the state is standing at the border saying, "We are going to take our cut before we let you leave." It leaves a bitter taste in people's mouths and is often the final confirmation that they made the right choice to go.
Now let's move a little further north to state number 5. This one presents a fascinating economic paradox. It is a state with a booming economy, the best hospitals in the world, and the most prestigious universities on the planet. I am talking about Massachusetts. You would think that a state with companies like Moderna, Vertex, and DraftKings, plus Harvard and MIT, would be a magnet for migration. And it is, for students.
But the moment those students graduate, they are leaving. Massachusetts is suffering from a severe success ceiling. The problem here is that the state has become a gated community for the wealthy and the intellectual elite. The cost of living in the greater Boston area has gone stratospheric, rivaling San Francisco and Manhattan. We are talking about old, drafty, triple-decker apartments selling for over $1 million. If you are a young professional, even a successful one, the ladder to home ownership has been pulled up out of reach. Let's look at the brain drain phenomenon. Massachusetts educates the world's smartest young people. Every year, thousands of brilliant engineers, doctors, and scientists graduate in Boston. They love the city, they love the history, but then they look at the rent. A one-bedroom apartment in Cambridge or the Seaport can easily run $3,500 a month. Buying a starter home within a commuting distance of the city is nearly impossible for anyone without generational wealth or a dual high-income salary.
Imagine a recent graduate named Rahul. He just finished his master's in engineering at MIT. He is exactly the kind of person every state wants: young, high-earning, and innovative. He gets a job offer in Boston for $90,000. He also gets an offer in Austin, Texas for $85,000. On paper, Boston pays more, but Rahul is smart. He looks at the cost of living. In Boston, he will be living with 2 roommates in an old apartment with no parking. In Austin, with $5,000 less in salary, he can rent a luxury apartment by himself, buy a car, and still save money to buy a house in 3 years. He chooses Austin. Massachusetts spent years educating him, but Texas gets the benefit of his tax dollars and his talent. This is happening thousands of times a year. For the real estate investor, Massachusetts is a fortress, but it is a hard one to breach. The market is incredibly stable. Prices rarely crash because there is simply no land left to build on, and the demand from high earners is constant. But the barrier to entry is massive. You need serious capital to play in this market, and if you are looking for cash flow, forget about it. You are almost certainly going to be cash flow negative or break even on a rental property in Boston if you buy at today's prices and interest rates. You are betting purely on appreciation. That is a valid strategy, but it is a risky one if you don't have deep pockets to cover the monthly shortfall. There's also the NIMBY factor, not in my backyard. Massachusetts has some of the strictest zoning laws in the country. Local communities fight tooth and nail against new apartment complexes or affordable housing developments. This keeps property values high for current owners, which is great if you already own a home there, but it chokes off the supply for everyone else. It creates a frozen market where nobody can afford to move in and nobody wants to sell because they can't afford to buy anything else in the same area. And we have to be honest about the lifestyle factor. The weather tax is real. As remote work becomes the norm, people are less willing to tolerate 5 months of gray skies, freezing rain, and snow shoveling. When you are paying a premium to live in a state, you expect a premium lifestyle. For many, shivering at a bus stop in February while paying $3,000 in rent just doesn't feel like a good deal anymore. They are trading the history and culture of New England for the sunshine and swimming pools of the Sun Belt. So we have the high tax traps of New Jersey and the exclusive high-cost fortress of Massachusetts driving people away. But the list isn't done. We still have 2 states to go, and these next 2 are leaving the Northeast and heading into the heart of the country and the Deep South. The next state on our list, number 6, is facing a crisis that you can't fix with better budgeting or lower taxes. It is a problem of nature, risk, and the total collapse of the insurance market. If you are thinking about buying cheap investment property in the South because the prices look too good to be true, you need to hear this warning. You might be buying an uninsurable asset. And state number 7, it is a classic American powerhouse that is seeing a quiet but massive shift of its population. In the next section, we are going to break down Louisiana and Pennsylvania. And stick around, because I am also going to share a bonus insight about the boomerang effect, the surprising reason why some people who leave these states are trying to come back, and the harsh reality that hits them when they do. You don't want to miss that twist.
We have covered the high-tax exits of the Northeast and the cost of living crises on the West Coast. But now we arrive at state number 6, and this one is terrifying for a completely different reason. It isn't the government that is driving people away here. It is Mother Nature and the financial markets reacting to her. We are talking about Louisiana. If you are browsing Zillow late at night looking for cash flow, you might stumble upon a gorgeous, historic home in New Orleans or a spacious property in Lake Charles for what seems like pennies compared to the rest of the country. You see a house for $200,000 and think, this is it. This is the deal of the century. But before you click Contact Agent, you need to know about the insurance apocalypse. Louisiana is currently facing an existential threat that goes beyond simple migration. It is becoming financially unlivable because of insurance premiums. After a series of devastating hurricanes, major insurers have packed their bags and left the state. They have decided that the risk of paying out claims is just too high. When the big companies leave, the remaining options skyrocket in price. We are seeing homeowners who used to pay $2,000 a year for insurance now getting renewal notices for $10,000, $12,000, or even $15,000. That is not inflation. That is a market failure.
Imagine a retiree named Pierre. He lives on a fixed income in a house he has owned for 30 years. He has paid off his mortgage, so he thinks he is safe. But suddenly, his insurance bill costs more than his mortgage payments used to be. He can't afford it. So he has two choices: go naked without insurance and risk losing everything in the next storm, or sell the house. But here's the kicker. Who's going to buy it? A buyer needs a mortgage, and a bank won't give a mortgage without insurance. Pierre is trapped in a house he can't afford to keep and can't easily sell. This is happening all over the southern part of the state, creating a frozen market where inventory sits and rots. For a real estate investor, Louisiana is a minefield. The cash flow trap here is deadly. You might calculate your returns based on the mortgage and taxes, showing a fantastic profit. But if you don't get a binding insurance quote before you make an offer, you are gambling with your financial life. I've seen investors get under contract on a duplex, only to find out 3 days before closing that the insurance premium kills the entire deal. And even if you find coverage today, there is no guarantee that the company won't go insolvent next year. The population is shrinking because people simply cannot budget for the unknown. They're moving to places where the sky doesn't threaten to bankrupt them every hurricane season. Finally, we arrive at state number 7 on our list of places people are leaving. It is a state with a rich history, essentially the birthplace of the nation, but one that is struggling to find its identity in the modern economy. We are talking about Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania is interesting because the exodus here is more localized, but it is significant. We are seeing a massive flight from its largest city, Philadelphia, and a general drift away from the rural Rust Belt areas.
The story in Pennsylvania is about the hollow middle. The wealthy suburbs are doing okay, but the urban centers and the rural manufacturing towns are bleeding residents. In Philadelphia, the issue is a heartbreaking combination of rising crime rates and tax burdens. The city imposes a wage tax, a literal tax on your paycheck just for working or living in the city, which is a huge disincentive for high earners. Why live in the city and pay nearly 4% of your income to the local government when you can move 20 minutes away to a suburb and keep that money? This policy worked when everyone had to commute to the city center, but in the age of remote work, it is driving talent away. But there is a deeper reason people are leaving Pennsylvania: economic stagnation. While states like Texas, Florida, and Tennessee are booming with new tech jobs and manufacturing plants, Pennsylvania often feels like it is stuck in the past. Young people graduate from great schools in the state, like Penn State or UPenn, and immediately look for jobs in New York, D.C., or the Sun Belt. It is a slow leak of talent. They're looking for dynamism, for growth, and they just don't feel that energy in the Keystone State. For the investor, you have to be careful about the appreciation trap here. You might buy a cheap rental in a former steel town, but if the population is declining by 1% every year, your tenant pool is drying up. You might get cash flow today, but in 10 years, you might own a worthless asset in a ghost town.
The smart money in Pennsylvania is very selective, sticking to the eds and meds corridors near universities and hospitals, while avoiding the areas that are slowly emptying out. So those are the 7 states: California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Louisiana, and Pennsylvania. They are the Exit 7. But I promised you a bonus insight, a secret that most real estate channels won't tell you because it complicates the narrative. We have talked all about why people are leaving, but we need to talk about what happens after they leave. Here is the bonus insight: the boomerang effect and the tragedy of the locked-out seller. It has become a trend to bash these states and praise Florida and Texas, but the truth is, the grass isn't always greener. We are starting to see a wave of boomerang buyers. People who moved to the South, stayed for 2 years, and hated it. Maybe it was the humidity in July that made them feel like they were living in a soup bowl. Maybe it was the politics. Maybe they missed the walkability of New York or the mountains of California. They decide, you know what? The high taxes were worth it. I'm moving back. But here is the tragedy: they can't. Let's go back to our couple, Tony and Lisa, who moved from New Jersey to North Carolina. They sold their NJ home for $600,000 in 2021. They felt rich. They bought a mansion in North Carolina for $400,000 and spent the rest on new cars and furniture. 2 years later, they want to return to New Jersey. But while they were gone, that house they sold for $600,000 is now worth $750,000 because of the inventory shortage, and mortgage rates have doubled from 3% to 7%.
They run the numbers and realize they are financially locked out of their old life. To buy their own house back, their monthly payment would be triple what it used to be. They literally cannot afford to return. This is the hidden risk of leaving these blue-chip states. When you sell a property in a high-demand, supply-constrained market like Boston or Los Angeles, you are giving up a golden ticket. It is an asset that is incredibly hard to reacquire once you let it go. This creates a psychological crisis for many movers. They feel stuck in a state they don't like with money they can't effectively use to get home. It is what I call golden handcuffs in reverse. If you are thinking about moving, you need to be 100% sure it is a permanent move. Do not treat selling your California or New York home as a trial run. Rent it out for a year first. Keep the asset. Test the waters in the new state before you burn the bridge, because the toll to cross back over that bridge is getting more expensive every single day. So if everyone is leaving these 7 states, where on earth are they actually going? And more importantly, as an investor or a future immigrant, is it too late to follow them? Are the destination states now too expensive, or are there still hidden pockets of opportunity? In the final part of this video, we are going to wrap this up with the new hubs, the specific cities where the smart money is moving right now. I'm going to give you the practical action steps you need to take whether you are fleeing a dying state or looking to plant your flag in a growing one. We will bring it all home and give you the roadmap for the next 5 years. You do not want to miss the conclusion.
So, the moving trucks are packed, the for sale signs are up, and the Exit 7, California, New York, Illinois, New Jersey, Massachusetts, Louisiana, and Pennsylvania are watching their residents drive away. But this leaves us with the million-dollar question, the one that determines where you should put your money and where you should build your life. Where on earth is everyone going? And more importantly, have you already missed the boat? The easy answer, the one you hear on the news every night, is Florida and Texas. And sure, the data supports that. Florida and Texas are the giants of this migration shift because of their zero income tax policies and business-friendly environments. But if you are an investor or a family looking for affordability, I have some bad news. In places like Miami, Austin, and Dallas, the gold rush phase is largely over. The prices in those cities have already exploded to catch up with the demand. If you move there now, you are paying top dollar. You aren't early, you are late. The smart money, the investors and the savvy movers who are looking for the next boom, is looking at the second wave cities. These are the places that offer the benefits of the Sun Belt but haven't completely exploded in price yet. We're talking about the Carolinas, specifically areas outside of Charlotte and Raleigh. We're talking about Tennessee, but looking beyond Nashville to places like Knoxville and Chattanooga. We're even seeing a massive surge in what I call the quiet belt, states like Arkansas and Oklahoma. Places like Northwest Arkansas are booming because they offer a high quality of life, incredible nature, and homes that regular people can actually afford.
If you are an aspiring immigrant dreaming of the American dream, this is my most critical piece of advice for you. Do not get trapped by the Hollywood map. When you watch movies, you see New York City and Los Angeles. You think that is America. But if you move to those places today without a massive salary, you are setting yourself up for a struggle. The new American dream is being built in places you might never have heard of. It is being built in Huntsville, Alabama. It is being built in Greenville, South Carolina. These are the places where you can still buy a house with a backyard for $300,000, where the schools are good and where your paycheck stays in your pocket. For the real estate investors watching this, you need to pivot your strategy. The days of buying just for appreciation in the coastal cities are paused. The cash flow is gone. Your strategy now needs to be migration arbitrage. You want to buy in the path of progress. Look at where the U-Haul trucks are heading, but buy 1 hour outside of those major hotspots. If everyone is moving to Nashville, you look at the suburbs 45 minutes away. That is where the appreciation will ripple out to next. And remember the lesson of the boomerang effect we talked about earlier. Do not burn your bridges. If you own property in a blue-chip state like New York or California, try to hold it if you can. Those markets are resilient. They might be bleeding now, but they are not going to disappear. Scarcity is still real in those areas. We are living through a historic redrawing of the American map. It is painful for the states that are losing out, but it is a massive opportunity for the states that are welcoming new energy. We are seeing a shift from high-tax, high-service models to low-tax, high-freedom models. People are voting for autonomy. They are voting for safety, and they are voting for a future where they aren't drowning in debt just to have a roof over their heads.
The mistake most people make is thinking this is temporary. They think, oh, once interest rates come down, everyone will move back to Chicago. I wouldn't bet on it. Once a business moves its headquarters, it rarely moves back. Once a family establishes roots, makes friends, and gets used to keeping 10% more of their income, they rarely go back to paying higher taxes. This is a structural shift, not a seasonal one. So, what should you do right now? If you're in one of the Exit 7 states, don't panic. You don't have to sell tomorrow, but you need to look at your long-term plan. Are you getting value for the premium you pay? If the answer is no, start planning your exit strategy. Visit these new hubs. Rent an Airbnb for a week in Tennessee or North Carolina. See if the lifestyle matches the hype. If you are already in a growth state, congratulations. You are on the right side of the trend. But be careful of over-leveraging. Even in boom towns, markets can correct. Don't assume prices will go up 20% every year forever. Stick to the fundamentals: cash flow, location, and job growth. The American dream isn't dead, it just moved. It packed up its bags in a U-Haul and drove south. It traded a subway pass for a pickup truck and a high-rise view for a front porch. The opportunity is out there, but you have to be willing to look away from the famous cities and find the places where the future is actually being built. I want to hear from you in the comments. This is always the most interesting part of our videos. Are you living in one of the Exit 7 states? Are you planning to leave? Or did you already make the move? Tell us your story. Did you regret it, or was it the best decision of your life? The debate in the comments helps everyone learn, so let's get the conversation started. If you found value in this deep dive, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. It helps the YouTube algorithm show this truth to more people who need to hear it. And if you want to stay ahead of the curve on real estate, immigration, and the U.S. economy, make sure you are subscribed to State of Mind. We don't just follow the news, we show you what the news means for your wallet. In the next video, we are going to flip the script and look at the top 5 states that will make you rich in 2025. We are going to dive into the specific numbers, the job markets, and the hidden gems where you can still find incredible deals. You do not want to miss that one. Until then, keep your eyes on the data, keep your options open, and remember, your state of mind is important, but your state of mind determines your future. I'll see you in the next one.